Welcome to the ADHD Untangled podcast. I'm Rosie, your ADHD coach, trainer, and fellow untangler. This podcast is where we stop fighting with our ADHD brains and start understanding them. Each week, we dive into real conversations with experts and incredible minds to turn your struggles into strengths, so you can find clarity in the chaos and start living in a way that feels more authentic to you. So if you're ready to start seeing your ADHD differently, then you're in the right place. Let's get untangled. Our next guest is what I like to call a true brain changer. Do you like that? He's on a mission to free children and adults from struggles rooted in how their brains are wired. So struggle to strength is your big mission, right? You are a UK-based entrepreneur, the founder of Zing, groundbreaking brain development program that helps children, athletes, and high performers reach their full potential. I've done the training. It's absolutely amazing. He's also the founder of Educational Development International and owns a private school in the UK. Do you still own a private school in the UK? Two. And sits on the board of the Reach Institute. But behind all the science and success, he is a dad who watched his own daughter struggle so much that she lost all hope. And that's where his mission began. He's since devoted his life to helping parents and children reset their brain, rediscover confidence, and unlock what's truly possible. Please welcome my incredible friend, Wynford Dore.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so Wynford, question number one for you is, you've been known to say that ADHD, the name itself, is an insult. Why is it an insult?
Because it's so associated with negativity. It's one of the most absurd situations that we're in. And it doesn't just apply to ADHD. It applies to autism. It applies to dyslexia. It applies to mental health generally. The world has got the whole concept of mental health wrong. We assume physical health and physical strength is a positive. When we think about mental health, we don't think about mental strength. We think about weakness, limitations, the problems that we have with depression and anxiety and autism and so on and so on. And we've actually been, forgive the pun, brainwashed about mental health. We assume that whatever level of mental health we were born with is our limit, and we can't exceed that. So if something happens, it's always negative. Something happens, we need medication or maybe therapy or a combination of both. Nobody thinks about mental health in the way we think about physical health. It is possible to create mental strength. And you know what? That's by far the best way of dealing with any mental illness. So my approach to ADHD has been quite controversial, but it's being recognized now that if you can create mental strength, if you can put the synapses in, put the fundamental wiring in that was missed out originally, it's a double whammy. You make more of the amazing strengths that people have with ADHD. I nearly answered the question when you asked it earlier about what your special strength is, because you didn't answer it very well. You've got far more special strengths than ever you admitted earlier.
Someone who's like at the moment having a really shit time with their ADHD and they're, maybe they've lost their job, they've lost a relationship, they're in a really dark place. How do you, what do you say to them to get them going and get them out of that? And it's not saying that you can't be in that victim mindset and validate the struggle, but what do you say to them to turn that around, to get to move on and use it as a way to build strength?
That's a very, very good question. When I meet people that are facing huge challenges, I take the steps to identify where their potential is. So, there's a lot of all the misunderstanding around ADHD. Some people say, it's just naughty boy syndrome. And others say it's just to get attention. And so, no, it's a real neurological condition. Is it a disease? No. It's simply the development of the part of the brain called the cerebellum has been disordered. Where do the symptoms of neurodiversity start? It starts with trauma. And it can be any type of trauma. It can be adverse childhood experiences. It can be the mum had an accident during pregnancy or had a terribly a severe illness. It can be too many vaccinations at the wrong time. That toxic load is a trauma to a developing body. And if I can be very controversial for a second, can I?
Do what you want, come as you are.
What we've heard recently about Tylenol and paracetamol, that's not the only toxic condition that can happen, but the chemistry that's inside paracetamol, if it happens at the wrong time during probably the second or third trimester, it actually interferes with the development of the chemicals that develop the cerebellum. In other words, the prioritization that baby's brain has for the development of its own brain is changed. So if you get underdevelopment in some parts of the cerebellum, it explains why listening for long periods is not easy, because their auditory processing isn't fully developed. The sound waves that we're listening to now hopefully automatically become comprehended thoughts. For some children and adults, it's not like that. They need an extra process because the cerebellum hasn't fully automatized that process. For some, it's speech and language. So there's various speech and language deficits that they have. That's the cerebellum. It's caused by a trauma that's interfered with the normal sequence of development of the cerebellum. So it puts a delay in. Doesn't stop it, but it puts a delay in. For others, it's eye tracking, the coordination of their eyes. So when they try and read, their eyes are jumping around and the letters are going in a scrambled order. So if you look at all of the skill symptoms of ADHD, it's because the cerebellum hasn't finished off the automaticity needed to make that skill.
Can you explain, just in case people don't know, what is the cerebellum responsible for? Because I think with ADHD, we very rarely speak about it, and it's so important. We're always talking about the executive function, right? Like the front part.
Well, okay, I'll give you the link with cerebellum and the executive function. The cerebellum is the bit at the back of the brain that links the various parts of the brain together, and it links the parts of the brain to the various organs of the body. So it coordinates everything. It's like, the acoustic guys have got these sliders to adjust the sound levels up and down so everything is balanced. The cerebellum is like that, so that the coordination of everything is evened out. So, 1 in 10 children that have got ADHD at least can't stand the labels in their clothes when they're young. It's because the amplifier for that particular coordination, the amplifier of those feelings, hasn't been adjusted properly. For others, it's taste or texture. Some of them love tomato sauce and love chips and won't eat vegetables. And it really is painful. For them is actually not such a good idea, but it's because the cerebellum hasn't made that fine tuning. So the coordination of all of our sensory inputs, the development of all of our skills, social skills, sporting skills, reading skills, listening skills, and so on, are all cerebellum. But linking up to the point you were making, when a skill isn't fully automatic, we can't do it without thinking. We have to think about it. So normally, we're socializing now, and I'm just thinking what's of interest to you and your audience, and you're trying to think, what can I say to shut him up and ask him a different question? No. And we're using that social skill in our unconscious mind. But people with some types of autism, that isn't automatic for them. They have to remember the rules of socializing in their thinking brain. And you know what? If it happens in our thinking brain, it's 100,000 times slower than if it happens up here in our cortex.
That's why we're always like this. Everything feels so overwhelming.
So your thinking brain gets full of stuff that shouldn't be there. This can only hold 7 things. And if it gets overloaded with underdeveloped skills, coping with, they call it a compensatory strategy, conscious compensation. if your thinking brain is full of helping you out with the skills that your cerebellum hasn't yet finished off, then when you run out of space here, what goes wrong? First of all, you lose emotional control. So if children are frustrated, overloaded, it's because they've run out of space here. Have they chosen to lose their temper or become frustrated or tearful? Absolutely not. Incomplete development of the cerebellum means frequent overload in the prefrontal cortex in the thinking brain. That's why, and the executive functions, impulsivity, oh yes, we recognize that. Poor memory functions, lack of space to organize. When this is full, you can't be organized. You are forgetful. All of the symptoms that we associate, and all of the negative symptoms we associate with ADHD, to me, are fully explained by underdevelopment of the cerebellum. And that, to me, when I realized that was a huge breakthrough.
Do you believe, in your opinion, that just one toxic, so say like paracetamol, for example, can cause ADHD, or does it have to be a number of things? That alone?
It depends how serious it is. I believe generally it's a number of things. You know, there's so much debate about MMR. I've met loads of mums whose child developed autistic symptoms within weeks of an MMR vaccine. Now, do I think MMR causes it? Or was it that MMR was the last straw that broke the camel's back? The toxic load. And the same, I believe, for this whole debate around Tylenol and paracetamol. I believe very often it's the last strokes. So there's always a few things there. There's a few things there. So the last thing I want is for mums to feel any guilt. You know, do we not talk about paracetamol? Or do we just say, if we could, we would avoid doing the things that increase the chances of neurodiversity going forward?
Sorry to interrupt, but if you've ever felt called to make a real difference, this just might be it. I'm Rosie, an ADHD coach, and together with everyone's favourite neuroscientist, Dr. McGow, we have created a certified ADHD coach training. This is not just another training or course. This is a living curriculum built from science, movement, and lived experience. You'll learn how to coach ADHD clients with confidence, create meaningful change, and build a career that truly reflects who you are. Doors are now open, and head to untangledco.com to join the movement. Let's get untangled. Do you think we need to, have that intention of not wanting people's brains to be neurodiverse?
I think the only interesting people on the planet are the neurodiverse people.
Me too. So why get rid of it?
Absolutely don't get rid of the upsides. No. But if someone, if I've got a child that's obviously bright, she was intelligent, highly intelligent. She could read people like a book, but she spent her whole time in school not reading, not learning, being treated like the class clown. Her creativity was never respected, never encouraged, and so on. So if I had my time over again, I'd start my research when she was very much younger. I don't believe in burying our head in the sand and saying, look, if I've got limitations, let's find a way of dealing with them. Unfortunately, today, there are ways of stimulating the cerebellum and stimulating the vestibular system. I don't believe in accepting that anyone's got limitations.
So can you tell us what you think? Where do we start? If we want to strengthen, you said have mental strength instead of looking at it like mental health and seeing it struggle. Where does someone start?
So later on, the program I've been working on is about giving the right physical exercises for 10 minutes a day for 90 days. Mm-hmm. And that can be transformational. People with significant ADHD or significant autism, they need to do it probably for 6 months. Some with severe symptoms have done it for a year or more. But there are ways of forcing the brain to develop the very coordination that they missed out on. Wonderful thing about that is you keep all of the upsides, your creativity, your thinking outside the box, your ability to solve problems, your impulsivity, your determination, and so on. All of those things you keep. You just get rid of or dramatically reduce the things that have been holding you back.
And what is so with the 90 day, because obviously I've done the exercises, but you also do the exercises alongside EMDR. So tell us the connection and why that's so important.
Yeah, very good question. There's two fundamental things that reduce our mental capacity. One is the underdevelopment of the cerebellum, which causes some key skills to fill up our thinking brain with this conscious compensation. That dramatically reduces our mental capacity, and that's a bit of a pain. But the other thing is, any trauma that we've had, even in childhood, trauma creates triggers, and those triggers will go off. They'll cause us to go into fight or flight, to have a phobia, or it'll have some serious impact, because that trauma, that trigger, creates an amplifier that totally distorts a given situation. Soldiers that come back from war zones that had horrible experiences, if they hear a bang, a balloon bursts in a party, they're likely to lie down on the floor and be unable to move for quite some time because cortisol has flooded the brain. So the cerebellum underdevelopment reduces mental capacity in a chronic way. Trauma that's unresolved and undealt with reduces the capacity of the brain for the short term in an acute way. And so the program I've put together is about addressing both of those. So one of the things we've done, and it started in COVID because I was seeing so many people struggling with anxiety and overwhelm. I started the research then and discovered that what we are doing to develop the cerebellum actually multiplies plasticity. In fact, Nature magazine says that we're multiplying stem cells in the cerebellum and the hippocampus, two important junction boxes in the brain. When you've got lots of neuroplasticity, and then you use a tool called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, it seems to multiply the power of that tool. So EMDR is very powerful. It's very, very good. If anybody's got serious trauma, they should look at getting that. But if you do EMDR, when your brain has got lots of plasticity, when you've got lots of stem cells, it just seems to far more effortlessly make the kind of change you want, and press the reset button effectively, unplugging that combination of sensory inputs from the alarm system and plugging it back in to a regular memory.
And I can relate to that, because I've done Zing. Well, I did it once and didn't finish it. And the second time I finished it, I think it was the last, maybe a few days, I went on a silent retreat. But every single time after just a few weeks, though, my anxiety is the first thing I always say to you, don't I? Yeah. The calmness that I felt was actually incredible. And that word capacity, I had more space. It just felt like I had more space to deal with life and show up with whatever was going on.
One of the big issues, if you've got ADHD, reliably and regularly and consistently doing a program for 90 days for 10 minutes a day it's nigh on impossible. If you can do it, great. And the important thing is get rid of all of those triggers, all of those traumas. Often they've happened before we were old enough to even to have a memory. But whilst they're there, they're almost like a puncture, so that any development you're working on will slowly leak away. So until you get rid of all of the punctures, you don't end up with a brain maximized with all of your potential discovered and in play.
Love that. I wish we could talk more about this, but we have only got 4 minutes now. So I'm going to ask you, what's your one word for ADHD?
Potential. In fact, can I use 2 words?
Yeah, and this is what I was going to ask you, actually. What would you name ADHD if not ADHD?
Vast potential.
Vast potential. What does VAST stand for?
VAST stands for varied attention, stunning talent.
I love that. Can I have one? Thanks.
Varied attention, stunning talent.
Stunning
my
talent.
one word is vast.
Vast. One thing you wish teachers knew.
I really, teachers didn't just know, but they were given the tools to find the potential, to measure the potential. What parents with a child with ADHD or dyslexia, they're told, go and get some drugs, do this. No, focus on their upsides, focus on their strengths. That's what I'd love teachers to know that. We've got to change the education system.
100%. Is that what you do in your schools?
Yeah.
So you do a strength-focused approach to teaching. And how do you navigate that? How do you discover what their strengths are? Do you let them just have time where you sort of like notice and what it is they're more interested in?
I'm very fortunate because I've got an amazing team leading the school, and they're very careful about the teachers they take on. That these teachers are only taken on if they're prove that they can focus. Yeah, that's yours now. If they can focus on every child's strengths and needs. So our education within the school is very personalized. So we only have maximum of 18 in a class, for instance, and we get stunning results. But I'm working right now on 2 assessments, 2 new ones. I've had loads of assessments, but I've just developed, which I think are the 2 best. One is to find the potential in every child, and it actually shows people videos of exactly why they've got different symptoms and what they can do about it. That's going to be released in about 2 weeks. And the other one, I've done it in conjunction with Dr. Ned Hallowell, a friend of yours, and it's an assessment that looks at the classic ADHD symptoms, but has the same level of focus on the strengths, and it gives a report and an explanation of exactly what you can do to nurture that child or adult. That's going to come out in about 2 weeks too. I'll let you have the links to them when it's.
Oh yes, please. So, because this is the thing, I think we're all on the same page here. It's like really understanding the struggles is so important to validate them, but we don't want to stay there too long. This is what I believe as well. This is why coaching is the thing that I do, and I think it's then empowering people to know that life can still be great despite the struggles you face. And I think that's the danger we have with the narrative at the moment. Our brain loves a negative bias. It loves it. It wants to stay there. And if we continue to let the narrative from the media be that it's wrong and, we're going to struggle in this way and it's, all of this stuff, all the negatives, then what we're going to find is people hopeless and to be like, what's left for me to do?
I regard, I'm getting quite middle-aged now, if not worse, and I regard my time as precious. What Susie has left me is the challenge that I've got to get this to reach millions of people. The best changes in this world come from those that are neurodiverse. The best, most innovative ideas come from neurodiversity. So you imagine if we could change the whole language, change the systems, change the processes, so that we maximize the strengths of those with neurodiversity and we minimize the limitations, this world would be a better place in every sense.
100%. Parents living in fear.
Yeah.
Right now, they're worried about potentially losing their child through the mental health struggles like you faced, at the start of your mission, or through addiction, or one of those really dark struggles that have come from untreated ADHD, because we know that is rife in the community. Yeah. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that there is a reason why they get addicted. One of the executive functions is inhibitory control. If your thinking brain is full of stuff that shouldn't be there, you have precious little inhibitory control. You are much more likely to become addicted to something. But the second thing is that the more that's happening in your prefrontal cortex, the lower your self-esteem, the lower your confidence, and the more you're going to have things like imposter syndrome. So there's a direct correlation between how much mental activity has to take place here rather than here. And what's exciting is when you successfully complete a program to develop the cerebellum, you create more automaticity in far more of your everyday functions. It frees up capacity here, which is wonderful. But one of the big upsides is that it changes your perception of yourself. Mm-hmm. The less that's happening here, the higher your self-esteem and confidence.
Yeah. In a really short answer, how much of ADHD struggles do you think are down to lack of self-belief?
I actually don't think of any
No.
I actually think it's all neurological. It can all be explained neurologically. So I get very angry with people who think it's just, a middle-class family's disease and the child is just a naughty child. I get quite angry with them because they're ignoring the science. Every child that has got classic ADHD symptoms, you can show easily and quickly the neurological limitations they've got, which explains it. So a child is never knowingly naughty that's got ADHD. They're never knowingly forgetful.
It's that biology. It's not your character, it's biology.
It's biology. And for goodness sake, focus on that child's strengths, because he or she will definitely have them.
Yes, please. Last question. Life with or without ADHD, and I think for your daughter, because you're not officially diagnosed, and you don't say that you are or not. So
I am very obsessed with solving problems, so I probably have the odd symptom.
I mean, yeah, I think you have. One or two. With or without, if you could go back.
Oh, sorry, you said
with
again?
or without ADHD, if you could go back.
I wouldn't want to change anybody. What I would change is the education system and other process and the mental health systems around them. So we focus on the upsides and we focus on creating mental strength. Because when we create mental strength, we create mental capacity, we create mental resilience. And do you know what? It's infinitely better than the medication that's rammed down so many people's throats.
Thank you, Wynford. Thank you so much.